The Accountant 2, or The Accountant Squared if you're going to go with the stylization, is the sequel to The Accountant from over 8 years ago. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Movie Health Community, the internet's #1 source of health warnings at the movies. Now, full disclosure, I remember very little about seeing The Accountant in theaters. I remember that I saw it with my mom. I was already in my mid-20s when it was out, and it was the first time I ever saw an R-rated movie with my mom. That's about all I remember. So over 8 years later, this is the sequel we get. Let's talk about it. First off, when The Accountant first came out in 2016, I had been doing Movie Health Community in blog form for just over a year, I think. And that was the first theatrical release I ever gave a 10 out of 10 flashing lights score to. Just because I tended to be a little hesitant to give something the flashing light equivalent of an R rating right off the bat. I have since become a lot more liberal with the 10 out of 10 flashing light warning, but I've also added more levels of nuance to it. From what I remember, The Accountant does still deserve a 10 out of 10 for flashing lights. So let's talk about The Accountant 2. Is it safe for photosensitive audiences like the first one was not? The answer, at least in comparison to the first one, is a huge yes. In terms of photosensitivity, this movie is way more friendly than The Accountant. There are no scenes of autistic stimming using a strobe light in The Accountant 2. The strobiest thing that happens, is strobe a word? The strobiest thing that happens is a shot looking directly up from a motorcycle in a tunnel where there's a long line of lights that the motorcycle is driving past. As this motorcycle drives past those lights, they flash by really fast and do create a bit of a strobe effect. It does not last very long. It's not nearly as harsh as the strobe lights in the first movie. I don't remember what happens right before it though, because the scene directly cuts to these lights being zoomed by. The only other thing I've got for flashing lights is one very brief moment in a single shot toward the end of the movie where there are flashing red and blue police lights. There is some use of machine guns, but it uses them with a realistic muzzle flash, where it's not actually super bright. And those scenes all take place in bright daylight. There are some scenes where handguns are fired in darker environments and set off brighter muzzle flashes, but again, not super severe, and they do not last long. So for flashing lights, we're gonna give The Accountant 2 a 4 out of 10. In terms of motion, there is some camera shaking during some of the action, and there are scenes of chasing at high speeds. And then for mental health, we see a lot of photos of graphic and grisly murders. And there are a couple of jump scares having to do with firearms. The violence in this movie is very bloody. It's rated R for its violence. That shouldn't be a surprise. That about does it for the evaluation side of things. Now let's talk about how this movie is. It's not bad. It's a pretty decent time. I would say that this movie is at its strongest when it's exploring the brotherly dynamic between Ben Affleck and Jon Bernthal, which, by the way, great casting choice for Ben Affleck's brother as Jon Bernthal. Jon Bernthal has become one of those actors that just has a magnetic presence on screen, whether he's playing someone endearing or playing a real asshole. You see a similar effect with Glenn Powell in Top Gun Maverick. Even when the character is being antagonistic, you can't help but watch him and love him and root for him. Now, this movie never confirms or denies if Jon Bernthal's character also has autism, but he totally does. And anyone who sees this movie and is on the spectrum will be able to spot it from a mile away, including in the very first scene we see Jon Bernthal in. Which, by the way, that first scene of Jon Bernthal, it's so genius how it unfolds. There's an element to it that you're not sure why they're going with that element. And then the reveal of why this thing is happening is just so perfect. The thing about this movie, as opposed to most other action movies, is this movie's at its strongest when it's not an action-packed scene. The action is kind of middle-of-the-road, cinematic good stuff, but the scenes in between elevate it beyond being just a generic action movie. If it were just the action, this movie would be really generic. But because of everything that goes on in between the action scenes and the relationship that's explored between these two brothers, it just becomes a way better movie than you would expect. So I am going to give The Accountant Squared, or The Accountant 2, I'm going to give it a B. And I feel like I would have rated it higher if this action movie had more enthralling action, like I saw in the teaser trailer for Ballerina before the movie. Also, I saw this in an early matinee, so my audience was a surprisingly packed theater with a lot of quite old people. These people were chatty, so chatty amongst themselves, like multiple couples who were just talking out loud about every little thing that was going on. And you know, there is a time and place to watch a movie and to chat amongst yourselves when you're watching the movie. And if you're having trouble figuring out where that place is, let me give you a little hint. It's not in there! Thank you so much to our readers on Tumblr and Facebook, and as always, an extra special thanks to our patrons over on our Patreon page, whose names are scrolling on the screen like credits right now. As a reminder, nothing produced by Movie Health Community is medical advice, nor has any of it ever been reviewed by any medical professional. Be sure to leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we post new videos, and leave a comment if you have anything to add to this discourse, especially if you disagree with anything I've said. We love hearing from you. And as always, stay safe at the movies.